Here we go.
No Nation. Welcome into another riveting episode of the Renegade Rundown. Before I do the introductions today, just want to let you know, because you don't want to miss this one, guys. We have so much stuff to talk about. There's been all the rumors. Everybody's seen them. Last week, it was FSU to the SEC. No shot of the Big 10. This week, it's FSU to the Big 12, and everybody's 100% sure. We're going to get into that in due time. We also have Clemson landing a couple of haymakers in South Carolina today. Since the last time we've talked to you, we had reports about discovery beginning in Leon County, access to like 7 documents, I believe, going all the way back to 2010. Beautiful stuff. We've got the 22nd, there's a Board of Trustees meeting. The 22nd, Miss Moody's case comes back to court. So just a ton of stuff to speak with you about with my amazing co-host, Jen Santee, a.k.a. at Jen Santee 1890. You can find her on X. My other co-host, Deshawn Adams, a.k.a. at Deshawn Adams 18. And our man at Rohan Law on X. You can hear his pup calling in the background. Our favorite lawyer from Atlanta, Georgia, joins the show. What's going on, my man?
Happy to be here. It was an exciting week. I wasn't expecting us to have too much to talk about today, but then we finished the week strong, and now we've got more than enough on our plate to be discussing.
It's like it's the season already. We've been talking about it, how, in the off season, and people talk crap. It's like we want to be here for our fans. We want to do our 3 shows a week, but sometimes there's not so much stuff to talk about. So you got to get creative. During the season, it's like, holy shit, we've been doing this 3.5 hours. It's time to slow down. We got to go home. We'll talk about the rest next episode. So this is going to be one of those. We're not going to go 3 hours, but we're going to try to cram as much into an hour as we can for you guys. I don't know where we should start. Where should we start? I guess we can start with Clemson and what went down over there as we let the room kind of fill up with people. I'm not going to speak for Doug, but he'll probably say the same thing. We not quite as up on this. We haven't gone quite as deep down the rabbit hole into Clemson's case, but still some big points coming out of that, and every ruling that happens over there and vice versa affects the different cases. As we've talked about, the ACC is faced to battle on multiple fronts. Of course, Florida State and Clemson have to as well, but ACC has that extra level. And when you're on offense in North Carolina and you're on defense in South Carolina and Florida, what they're having to do is make these reciprocal arguments. We've talked about it a lot. I sent Doug a message about it, and that's kind of one of my main takeaways from some of the rulings today. It's like they're trying to convince them that they don't do business in South Carolina, but everything they're saying about that they don't do in South Carolina, they do in Florida in spades, and there's like no arguing it. So we could start there, but I'm sure you got a lot of comments there for the Clemson stuff.
Yeah, so today was a hearing in Pickens County, South Carolina, and the judge had the opportunity to hear both sides arguing some of the same issues that we've seen in the Florida cases, specifically talking about jurisdiction and trying to decide if South Carolina is the right jurisdiction to hear this case. So we already have North Carolina that had a hearing on this issue. Curiously, and again, not being as on top of this case as I am on the Florida State case, Judge Bledsoe in North Carolina said he was going to issue a ruling before today's hearing in Pickens County. I haven't seen it, and I have enough people around Twitter that are tagging me every time something comes out, so I feel like I would have seen it if there was something. So Judge Bledsoe missed the deadline to get something out before today's hearing. The judge in South Carolina said there's more than enough business contacts to suggest that the ACC is subject to the jurisdiction of South Carolina. And so now the case in South Carolina against the ACC is going to proceed. As we've seen in all these cases, whoever loses is going to appeal the decision. So now we have South Carolina catching up to Florida in that we will be appealing, or the ACC will be appealing this decision, this ruling today. And so as a result, really not a whole lot is going to happen after today's hearing for a while.
Jen, any thoughts, questions for Doug on what happened over in South Carolina?
No, it just sounds kind of like the same as it's going. Is that, I don't know how you can argue that you don't have jurisdiction when you clearly make millions of dollars out of that location. So it's just stupid. And as I say, I think the ACC can choke, so I don't really care how they feel about anything or if they want to whine or complain or any of the above. So, yeah, good. I'm glad.
Deshawn, what do you think, man?
Yeah,
You think
well,
it's a big effect on us?
no, but I will ask Doug this just to help our viewers and help some of us who are not privy to a lot of the legal understandings. Is what are the similarities and differences in the arguments from FSU's standpoint and Clemson's standpoint? Because there's like what happened today or the decision that was made, it kind of mirrors what happened in Leon County, but you have what are those things that kind of factor in that may look the same, but actually there's a different argument from each representation.
So again, not having gotten all the way into the Clemson suit, there are differences, and today those differences don't matter because, as we've talked about before, we're still trying to figure out where the game is going to be played. We haven't had the coin flip. We haven't had kickoff. We're not into the first quarter. So the particular strategies of each case is not at issue yet. Right now, we're still fighting over the jurisdictional issue of where the game is going to be played. Now, taking a 10,000-foot view, taking a step back, Florida State in its first complaint was much more aggressive about the Swofford issues and all the history, all the slander and things like that. Whereas Clemson kind of ignored those issues, but did pursue punitive damages and some aggressive business complaints against the ACC regarding their previous ACC championship and titles and the economic damage done by the ACC failing to argue. So there are some differences in the arguments, but both cases, their first complaint is, or their first count is arguing the grant of rights doesn't apply because the grant of rights is only in conjunction with the ESPN agreement, and the ESPN agreement only talks about member institutions. So as soon as Clemson and Florida State announce their departure and say that they're out, they're no longer going to be member institutions for that year that they have designated ahead, and therefore the grant of rights doesn't apply. Both suits make that same argument, and in that regard, they are identical, and that's really what's going to be the crux of these cases.
Okay.
I think you hit the nail on the head right there, because if I'm remembering correctly, Clemson is the one who really nailed that and kind of pointed out that at first, and then FSU second amended filing, as you spoke to, they added that in there. And that's kind of one of the biggest things, like, what is the definition of a game? What is that definition of a home game, as the ACC called it? And with everybody getting access to these things, it's coming true. I believe they decided, or the ACC had made the comment that they could lose upwards of $200 million with our exits. Also, another thing, that Deshawn's question reminded me, when you talk about
before you get there, let me add into what you were saying. So Matt Baker has done a great job breaking that down specifically. So if you're not following him, please do. But his articles have been all over it and have done a good job of addressing exactly that point you were making of why the definition of a game and why the definition of a member matters. So go ahead with your next point.
Yeah, that's a great point. Don't get like, I'm trying to get Matt to come hang out with us and maybe have a conversation.
He isn't going to if I'm on the show. I can promise you that. I'm just letting you know. That's probably my fault.
Bad breakup in high school?
No, I think it was the Jameis stuff.
Yeah.
Four reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, George.
Doing a good job on the reporting, but anybody that covers the Gators and stuff, there's always going to be stuff that we're going to disagree and have fun stuff. So that's pretty funny, but he didn't mention it when I talked to him. He seemed pretty open, so we'll see how it goes. But as far as the case, the question I was getting to from what Deshawn said, he reminded me of kind of the precedent and kind of what put Florida State behind the 8 ball, like in the first place, was the ACC being able to run and file a suit just due to the sunshine laws, and the fact that Florida State had to hold a bot meeting and say, hey, look, it's obvious we're about to sue. So they're able to go out there and rush. So the precedence was that, okay, The ACC gets jurisdiction over here, and that was going to be like an uphill battle the whole time. Now the fact that Florida and South Carolina has both ruled that it's fit to move forward in those states, does that have, now it's 2-1 versus North Carolina saying that it should go on there. Does that have any kind of effect, or is it still, well, there's 2 cases in North Carolina, so it's all completely separate, or what?
I think it's frustrating to the ACC, and if I'm on the ACC leadership and I'm looking at the legal bills that are going to mount up twice as fast as either of the universities, I think that is cause for significant concern. Again, I don't know what their priorities are when it comes to a settlement, when it comes to an agreement. You're looking for the pressure point. You're looking for what the true ask is. And obviously, yes, this is about money, but there's always non-financial considerations, whether it be the timing of the ESPN agreement and they're looking provision or option in February, whether it's ESPN leaning on the ACC. Look, maybe at the end of the day, what this is going to end up resulting in is a decision from the ACC that they do need to do graduated payments. And between all the talks of us going to the Big 12, going to the Big 10, going to the SEC, ESPN pressures the ACC and saying, just give Florida State and Clemson what they want. They're your bell cows anyway. So I used to say there was no chance of reconciliation. Once the talks of the Big 12 came up this week, I don't think there's any truth to those rumors, but it did get me thinking perhaps a reconciliation with an increased payout from the ACC is a possible resolution to this litigation.
Hell yeah, I think it's as possible as the Big 12. Like, if the Big 10 or the SEC doesn't work about, that's what I try to tell people. Like, what makes you think FSU and Clemson jump into the Big 12 makes it better than what the ACC is right now? That's the problem. Like, okay, they fixed the money, but we're about competing on a national level. The money's just part of it. You go to the Big 12, you're doing the same thing you did in 2012. They finagle, pull money here, pull money here. Look, we got you within $5 million of the SEC and Big 10, or maybe $5 million more. But then they're going to negotiate 3 more times between now and 2030, and they'll be making 150, and we'll be making 90 or 80 or whatever the case may be. So I definitely agree with you there.
The Pac-2 is 2 schools that are just sitting out there waiting for something to happen with realignment.
I'd rather
the ACC could go out there and bring them in, and then suddenly you do have a better product to go to ESPN and renegotiate the contract. And then in the meantime, the ACC needs to get serious, replace some of their leadership, and say these other schools need to invest in their football programs. I mean, starting with Miami, the simple thing is they need a marketing campaign down there, not giving away 3 tickets for the price of 1. They need to figure out how to get people in the stadium. So get down there and market. You're competing with the boats. You're competing with the baseball. You're competing with the NFL. Just get some decent marketing down there. Talk about the history of the program. We all hear about their 5 championships on Twitter every day. So let's talk about what the NIL is doing for the space down there. Let's talk about how exciting it is to get some decent talent down there. They have the best quarterback that they've had in the last 10 years. Now, still probably going to lose 4 or 5 games, but they do have a better quarterback than they've had the last 10 years. They should be able to at least half fill their stadium, 3/4 fill their stadium. If you can get 2 or 3 other ACC schools, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, Miami, to up their game and make it so that this is a competitive league, there is a way out of the embarrassment of 2023.
Well, I'll ask a question. Speaking back to reconciliation, if that was a possibility, I'm trying to gather my thoughts or senses and understanding. How could there be an increase in the funds long term if we're in a position where I guess we're making anywhere roughly between 36-45 million a year annually from the ACC? I don't see how, even if there is a revenue sharing where our school and Clemson would get more of the pie long term with the power too, I still don't see that as being sustainable.
Well, that's why the second part of that strategy is bringing in the Pac-2 schools. And the third part of that strategy is getting the lower tier ACC schools to get serious about getting good at football. And look, Virginia was good in the 90s. Virginia had a decent football team for several years. They first one that beat us.
Yes.
So
Did they?
there is this.
Yes.
Well,
Yep.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they
sure they
did.
did.
That was a fake touchdown. You know it, and I know it, and everybody else knows it. So I'm not going there. We're not doing that.
So,
That's not what
all
we're going
that
to
to
do.
say, if Virginia and Virginia Tech, North Carolina, NC State's been a thorn in our side for decades.
Yes.
They have down years, and they still
Marketing.
figure out a way
NC State is all marketing. Look at how
Yeah.
Ole Miss is looked at and how NC State is. And I guarantee you, maybe right now, Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin has a little something going better. But in the past 20 years, NC State has been twice the football program that
Ole Miss has been. Yes.
correct.
Hands down, with half the talent, like
Mhm.
there's such a huge marketing thing. And this is why these Big 12 people are so emboldened, because of the popularity on Twitter of certain teams. But when you go look at the top 40, when you go look at the top 20 in recruiting, there's 5 ACC teams in there. That's not for nothing. Like, that's
Right.
important shit. The best team in the Big 12 is like 22nd or 23rd, and that's not a one-year thing. That's every year outside of Oklahoma and Texas. But they played in the Big 12 last year. It's like they're banking on that, but they don't exist anymore. They're not going to be there. So just in the odds of like trying to get to everything, I'm going to try to get on to
Go on. Move to the next thing.
So we could go ahead and talk this Big 12 rumor while we're here. But something did come up that I wanted to address. Deshawn talked about it a little bit before we went on. There's been some rumors going around about possibly lawyers from the team, Florida State's team, leaving.
ACC team.
ACC.
Yeah. There was an ACC lawyer that left, and lawyers change jobs all the time. It's not uncommon, especially when litigation goes on this long.
Shit.
That's
Hell,
perfectly
that's
reasonable.
great news. I totally misunderstood that.
And it was a secondary or tertiary attorney. It wasn't one of the main ones.
Okay.
We're not like newsbreakers around here, and we don't like talking about stuff that we're not sure about, So it's like when something gets reported at 5:00, it's like, but yeah, when it started coming up in the chat, we got to talk about it. But if it's an ACC lawyer, that's great. Get as many of them assholes to quit as we can, for sure. But yeah, let's stick to the Big 12 thing for a minute, because this is like really, really hardcore for me. And then we'll get back into FSU and what's going on in Leon County in a few minutes. All this shit started with Ross Dellinger. Ross Dellinger comes out. He's at Pac-12 Media Days, has a conversation with Brett Yomark or whatever about, we're aggressive. We're wanting to add teams. We're going to talk to anybody. And he writes up this thing, and he says that he believes that the Big 12, FSU and Clemson, are in the earliest possible stages of communication. Which, like, we've been telling you guys this for over a year, that they're doing their due diligence and meeting all these people in back rooms and things. And people have been giving me shit. Now, people that also do this, and they do shows 6-7 times, they do the same thing. Oh, Florida State doesn't really have an offer from the Big Ten. It's against the law. It's impossible. All these things. Well, I never said that. I never saw anybody say that. It was just the idea of what we're working towards. Going towards the AAU. You see the Chicago fan club getting boosted up. You see all these things. Sending players to the Big Ten Leadership Conference. The research. The medical. It's a mountain of evidence. And all it takes is one comment at a media day from a guy who's not even from football, from the business world, from the marketing world, of taking companies and making them, not saying like bullshitter, but it's like a luxury thing they do with sports and stuff. They'll sell you a jersey for $500 that costs $5 to make because it's a Jets jersey. So that's what he's doing for the Pac-12, and it's all good and great. But to see everybody latch onto it, I get making it in your title. We're talking about it. It's in our title right now. People love to talk about it. But just to present it as fact and this is the new thing, no.
Well, it's popular in three groups for three reasons. It's popular in the Big 12 because they're like, oh my gosh, we're going to be legitimate. If we get a decent team, we're actually going to be good. So they're all excited about it. The haters of FSU are all excited about it because they get to point the finger and laugh at us. You did all this work for a lateral move. And all the Florida State people are interested in it because they want to know how serious of a rumor this really is.
Mm-hmm.
I know you got thoughts on this one, Jim.
Well, here's what I would say. Okay, unless you're going to get paid like millions more than the rest of the scrubs in that league, I don't even think that this would be serious. This is so unserious. It's not. I really just don't have the words for it. So unless you're going to get paid maybe $10 million more than, say, a Baylor or a TCU or UCF, like, I'm out. I don't need it. Maybe it would be a stopgap, but even if it was a stopgap, we're going to be needing, maybe $10 to $15 million more than the rest of those losers. Like, that's it. That's bottom line. And the only other thing I would say is if they decide to do that, like, it would be a mistake. It would be stupid, and it would be a waste of money and a waste of time. And I don't really see Florida State wanting to waste all that money to go to a league that's just as bad as the ACC. So again, no, I think this is very unserious.
And that's why the math, I'm sorry, John, real quick, that's why the math to me started making sense if the ACC goes to a graduated payment. They go $10 million, $20 million more, maybe make it $30 million in 3 years, then yeah, we can talk about sitting in the ACC until 2036. But it would need to be an escalating nature of a different and disparate payment over the next few years. And then, yeah, we'll stick around and keep whooping everybody's butts. Go ahead, Deshawn.
What you were going to do in the if you go to the Big 12, I mean, yes, you're going to run it. You're going to win it. I mean, seriously, let's be for real. And then you could make maybe a $10 million extra, but who gives a shit? Why would you just want to be left out again? I'm out. I don't want to hear it.
All right, I'll ask it as a question because I've heard some things about as far as the Big 12 and their investment into private equity and how they would use that as the capital for those situations as far as trying to acquire bigger name programs or brands. Anyone can answer this. It's like, what is that? How does that play into things if they're, because they are being very aggressive because of it. So if y'all can just give an opinion to help me understand that part, because I know that their president is being very their president's being very aggressive. He's being very boisterous to start off to even mention it, and it's been documented. But as far as private equity, how would that play a part in even enticing? Because I mean, this is being brought up simply because of that. I know that involvement has helped drive the Big 12 into even the conversations.
I have thoughts, but it's not my show. I'll let them go first.
Okay.
Well, I was fine with you giving your thoughts first. As far as my thoughts on it, yeah, I mean, it's going to be the All-State 12 or something like that is the rumor. It's great. Go out, get all this extra money, but it goes back to what I said earlier. It's pretty strong. It's just my thoughts on it. All this stuff you do is great, and it would be great for maybe 1 or 2 years. If that's what it was, if there was some kind of literally we're going to sign a 2-year contract and then go to the Big Ten or whatever the case may be, okay. But I don't see that happening. If they were able to raise, say, $70 million and get you $15 million more than the Big Ten or the SEC this year, that ain't even good enough. Because what's going to happen is the same exact thing as 2012 when the ACC did the same thing. Look, they're only making 23. We got you up to 30. Well, what happens? The very next year, they negotiate. They go to 37, then 47. So it's unless they pull off a live golf type situation where they can legitimately grab title contenders from the SEC and the Big Ten, that's the only way they're luring Clemson and Florida State, in my personal opinion. Unless it's some crazy like 1 year stopgap thing. And Kerry Go Knowles dropped a $4.99 super chat before I forget. It says, Doug, I heard Clemson landed a big blow versus the ACC today. Can you opine? We covered that for the first 10, 15 minutes of the show. I'm not sure if we missed anything. If you haven't caught that already, Kerry Go Knowles. But I'm sure we'll touch back on it in a little bit.
Yeah, the bottom line is case goes forward in South Carolina, and the ACC has to spend more money on legal fees. Jen, did you want to say something before I jumped in on private equity?
No, I just, I think it's hilarious that the media runs with the private equity stuff with the Big 12 when they were making fun of it for Florida State. But again, I digress. But go ahead.
So let me back up a little bit and give an overview of perspective on private equity. It sounds neat. It sounds exciting. It's not really being done in sports. And here's why it's a problem. Private equity gives up ownership rights to a third party, and there's usually a big nut that needs to be paid with that private equity loan. So I applaud the leadership for going out and starting the discussions, because we had this House litigation coming through where we're going to have to be paying players. There's going to be large amounts that are due. And from an emergency standpoint, as Florida State University relying on private equity, I think it's a strong positive. We need to have an infusion of cash in order to be able to make the payments that are going to come due without disrupting the rest of our budget. From a conference standpoint, the private equity has a substantial risk of disaster. And the reason why is because you're moving the decimal point over and adding a zero to the amount of money we're talking about. And then in a tech startup situation where private equity flourishes, you're talking about investing $500,000 in some neat technology that then Microsoft comes in and buys for $800 million. When you move when the numbers, the rate of return on investment, ROI, when it comes back at a 100x or a 200x, then yeah, you pay off the private equity guys, and the owners still get to make more money than they could have ever thought about in their entire lifetime. On a conference basis, if you're talking about paying Clemson and Florida State $200 million, you're getting $200 million of private equity. You're not turning the conference around in the next 10 years to a $2 billion operation. And that's where the conference level private equity is a huge risk. That's where the problem lies.
Okay.
People should have just let you go first, because that ties into my point that I was making, in that this sounds all great right now when you're trying to put it together. But what the hell happens when they get the numbers from the 2024 season and they compare them to the Big 10 and the SEC? They're going to be running for their lives.
Yeah.
Or tearing that thing apart for spare parts. That's just kind of how I see it. Unless, again, like I said, and I don't even know the specifics of how Live Golf went down, but if they find some Saudi with, $1 trillion that isn't listed, on the books, and they can just
limitless
hand out $100 million
funds
per, put me in. But that's not going to happen. The SEC was
the Florida State Saudi Knolls has a really good ring to it. And I would take that oil money. Look, Texas has oil money. Why can't the Saudi Knolls have oil money? But from a conference level standpoint, the risk is exponentially greater.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. Go ahead.
All I'm saying is I just find it so rich that all these people are just drooling over the private equity, and look, they're going to get Florida State's going to be relegated to the Big 12. But yet when Florida State was tinkering with private equity, they were like, oh my God, it's going to ruin college football. Just explain the difference here, because to me, a conference taking on private equity would be way more pearl clutching. And these fools got on TV, almost fainted, and cried about Florida State wanting to do private equity. I find this insane.
Haters want to hate no matter what it's about.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
We are the hated ones. But I think Mike Norvell, Michael Alford, the whole staff is kind of just soaking it in and just love it. Just love it. I made that post about Florida State having 6 programs in the ACC that could be considered the best programs in the conference. And people told me I was crazy, and either 4 or 5 of them just got released Coach of the Year. So it's I guess I was just nuts for saying that. Whatever. So yeah, it's real funny, but yeah, I agree. And that's just what Doug was saying, way worse for the conference. And as far as Project Osceola and the private equity that Florida State has available to it, they've still got $200 million at their disposal. They've got $50 million sitting there for a possible exit fee on top of the 300 some odd million that they've already got invested in the stadium. Bill Farley, Substack, we've had him on here before. When he first did that FOIA request and found out about all this Project Seminole stuff, I don't even know how long it was, 3 or 4 months ago. And that's another thing you got on Twitter. He posted talking about that. And well, how do you know that? That's not true. All this stuff. What's your source? I'm like, a little thing called FOIA and a lost art called journalism. It's like, oh my goodness.
Well, we know journalists don't really do that now, do they? Even though there's a real spiffy school out there at Columbia that allows them to go to school to learn how to do research and report on things, which is absolutely insane. But they go to the school and then they go home and sit on their hands and then do whatever the TV talking heads tell them to report about. That is the truth. So take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think that's the overlying message here with the Big 12 is that the initial tweet went haywire. It went viral. Everybody saw money signs and an ability to kind of talk about something. And as I even chased down the leads, like I had somebody tell me, Pete Nonko said that FSU is expected to go to the Big 12. I'm like, really? That doesn't sound. Oh, so I go and watch the video. And he says, and quote, if Florida State doesn't get into the Big 10 or Clemson, it may be the Big 12. So how that translates into he predicted or saying they're expected, well, that's just because the title of the video. But it is what it is. The SEC is the other one that was big. It came up last week. To me, it's a lot more possible, a lot more favorable. It's still not the top choice for us around here. It's the Big 10. It's no secret. We think it's the Big 10. That's what all the clues tell us. All the people we're privy to, all the higher ups and things that we've been able to talk to, and through third parties and everything of the nature. It just seems like to us, Florida State wants to be in the Big 10 or worth the most of the Big 10. But at the end of the day, and unlike the Big 12, which we told you is never going to happen in a million years, and if it happens, I'll have to consider closing down. We have been telling you that SEC is a possibility. It wouldn't be the end of the world. It's not necessarily the best situation. I'd rather not have to, be at the beck and call of ESPN and all of those things. But I do believe there is a serious opportunity there. Now, you're going to have to get past Florida. You're going to have to get past all these different things. But if the rumors of ESPN's kind of financial distress they're under is really as bad as folks make it out to seem, and it's hard to know because they've been laying off 1,000 people a year since like 2009. It seems like to me, like it's just been going on. They've been going through presidents and all these things. I don't think that's that far-fetched that we could end up in the SEC. I'd put it somewhere at like 20%, Big 10, 75%, independent 4.9%. I put that 0.1 for Big 12. I'll give that to you guys. But that's all I'm giving. But I'm just curious what everybody thinks. Has their opinion moved any towards the SEC with all the talk going around? Or are we all just Big 10 locked in still?
I'll start. In my opinion, I just look at it as the investment that the university has made with campus, with the build. Basically, it's just boils down to building buildings, all of the things that are doing financially around the campus, the investments into the research and development. I can understand Florida State would be a top academic school in the Big 12 without doing any of that. So that's my logic to it. Why do that if you want to make that kind of move? It's not possible. So I say everything they're doing, they apply for AAU status. You didn't get it this time, but you're not applying for that if you want to go to the Big 12 because you don't have to do that. Even the SEC, you don't have to do that. So I look at it as it's a move for Big 10 and leave it at that.
I love it. Who wants to go next?
What I would say is if okay, so I think it's about 70-30 for me. I think it's 70-30. And but I think that if Florida State actually entertained, and I'm gonna be real with you guys, I think if they entertained the Big 12, it would prove to me of being an unserious move. I think it would be a mistake. I think it would be a joke. And I think that fans should be angry about it. And I think that if it comes down to it, you should be angry about it. Because you're wasting money. You're wasting public perception. You have lost in the eyes of viewers. You have lost in the eyes of recruits. I think this would be such a huge mistake. I think it would be gross. I think it would be a joke. Again, I don't even have the words for that.
Or the Big 12?
No, I would say the Big 12. So I think that is where I would go with that. Yeah. So I think it would be 70-30 for me. I would say 70 Big Ten. I would say 30 SEC. But I do think the SEC stuff is real. I do.
Doug,
I don't
any
care.
on the rumors last week? You think it's any more real than it's ever been?
I used to say anything but the ACC. Now I would say anything but the Big 12. Look, there is nothing that Michael Alford has done in the last 24 months that would lead me to believe that they would fumble the bag that bad.
Mm-hmm.
I have the utmost confidence in them.
Agreed.
They will go independent before they go Big 12. Now, let me put an asterisk next to that. We talked about private equity. If the number's $100 million for 2 years, hell yeah. But I can't imagine that would be the case. That would be the only exception to the I can't believe you effing did that, you morons attitude that I would have if we ended up in the Big 12. Look, I love UCF. I think UCF does need to move ahead of Miami in the Big 3 for the state of Florida. I think they are legitimate. Yeah. USF, I mean, at least we've got better travel partners. Whether it's the ACC, SEC, or Big 10, I have reasons for thinking positively about either one of those, whether it's the geography, the travel, things like that, the money, obviously. But I'm personally now 50-50 because, yes, while we're upset about ESPN and not a big fan of ESPN, and this will be a good chance to segue into briefly talking about the Ireland trip and what our plans are for the SEC or the ESPN and the Ireland trip. ESPN will become a much more willing partner in promoting Florida State if we are in the SEC. There will be forgiveness. There will be mea culpas. Paul Feinbaum will start talking about what an incredible tradition we have with Osceola and how he always knew that we could beat Alabama if they hadn't injured Francois in the Atlanta Chick-fil-A game. So that's what you will see a shift in the attitude from ESPN if we end up joining the SEC. But I would really rather watch Fox Big Sports Saturday at noon instead of ESPN going forward.
Same. R. Wilmer has been with us since like day one. He pressured me. I guess I missed one of his questions, so we scrolled back up to get to it. It's not even a super chat, but we love you, Wilmer. We'll read it. Which would the panel prefer? No fee exit to the SEC with ESPN negotiating it, or 250 to 500 million fee to leave for the Big 10?
I'll start.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's
okay.
tough.
I'll start.
That's a big egg there.
I'm gonna weigh pros and cons from both sides. For me, the SEC's issue is my issue with them would be, will we get a fair shake? Because we've sat and watched numerous games and sporting events in which we had to see questionable calls made, in which we've all had speculations and conspiracy theories about how the ACC treated us in these sporting events. I would look at the SEC the same way. It doesn't mean that we would get the money, we'd get all the benefits, but on the field, will we still get the same fair shake and calls if we're playing Georgia, Alabama? That's my question. So for me, I would rather pay the $250 and get a fair shake than to not pay nothing and be questioning if I'm moving into a better financial situation, but yet facing the same ref bullshit.
It's whiteout game in Penn State after we go and travel for the first game. You think that their refs are going to give us a fair shake either? Look, we're fans. We're homers. Every call against us is complete BS, and every call for us is the right call. You're never, ever, ever going to confirm. You're never going to satisfy our fans that any ref is giving us a fair shake unless we win by 4 touchdowns and dominate the games.
Understood.
Beautifully said.
I would rather pay $500 million than have to deal with the SEC fan base every Saturday. I can't stand that cult, but I will gladly join in if I have to. but I don't want to. I live with these weirdos on a daily basis. It is the weirdest bunch of people you can ever imagine. These people think Starkville is an interesting place to be. If you've ever been to Starkville, it will be the last time you've been to Starkville. Okay? These people think Ole Miss is a good football program because the blind side was made. Okay? I don't have time for this craziness in my life. I just don't. You can't name me a time Ole Miss has ever won anything normal, except for, 10 games because they play 6 bullshit teams a year. I'm tired of this. Pay the $500 million, get the hell out. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, $500 million, that's $500 million. That is a lot. You would have to really talk about the term of the contract and get into that. If it's 5 years or something, God, I'd probably just have to go to the SEC just because of the size of the money. But honestly, if I'm being 100% honest, I can't argue too much what Jen and Deshawn said, because $250 million, as big as it sounds right now, in the larger scale, if you think your program is going to be worth, an extra $1 billion in 10 years because you went to the Big 10 versus the SEC. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. It's probably not. You're going to go in the SEC as well. But how much money have they already invested into their medical research center? How much have they invested into, the idea of going to the Big 10 behind the scenes? We don't know. Do you trust ESPN with all this bullshit, with the secrecy and everything? If they're negotiating it, it's really tough. My thing is, I didn't really trust the previous administration. I forget his name, with the NCAA now and that whole group before.
Wilcox.
Wilcox.
Yeah, Wilcox.
Please.
It felt like they were Swafford types, like that was their brand. They didn't want it with Mike Alford, with rest in peace Chainsaw Al, and him taking care of that change that just necessarily happened to happen, to where Mike Alford brings the boosters into the modernity, becomes the AD, all those things. It's just like, I just trust them. Like, I just feel like they're going to make the next move the right move for the next 30 years. So that's not like a cop out. I prefer the Big 10. But I would say
to Brett's point,
you're going to have to really think about that.
To Brett's point in the comments, I'm a season ticket holder. I have to drive 4 hours for a game. Make it worth my while. I want to have a home schedule in 2025. We're already kicking off with Bama. Give me Ole Miss, give me Arkansas, give me Vanderbilt, and give me Tennessee. If that's my home schedule for 2025, that's spectacular.
Clearly, Brett's never been to Knoxville. That's what I'm going to say. Okay. You're not going to like it. It's awful. Okay. It's awful. I'm just saying. It's a dumpster.
Tennessee, love-hate relationship with Jen. Yeah. She loves Memphis, but she's not big on a lot of those other places around there.
Y'all never been to Knoxville then. That's what I'm going to say.
No. But I want to go. I want to go once.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Indianapolis on a Saturday night, on a weekend night is a spectacle. And I would say I would love to go to Indianapolis, Columbus, Ohio, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Take me there. The toughest place we wouldn't be able to even fly into would only be Happy Valley. You're going to have to fly and then drive. But outside of that, you're going to be able to fly everywhere else. Of course, some people are going to look at it and say Iowa and Nebraska and those things, but you still have enough bigger programs in there. Then you add going to Eugene, Oregon, going to Los Angeles. That's twice.
San Diego.
Yeah.
It would be amazing.
It would be amazing. It'd be amazing both ways. It's a win-win situation. It's basically like we're all saying, just get us the hell out of the situation we're in. We'll figure it out once we're out the door.
Facts on top of facts on top of facts. SEC, dang it, man. Really wanted to be in the Big 10, but bring them on, baby. We're going to mash that ass. Big 10, we're on cloud 9. Big 12, you got to really think about your fandom and like what we're doing with the podcast and everything. That would break my heart. That would really break my heart, just because Florida State's, and this will be the last thing I say on it, Florida State, their whole thing was built on anybody, any place, anywhere. If your whole complaint has been the ACC not competing at a top level, not having enough people investing, they're pocketing the money from football. Meanwhile, you're begging for more. If you go to a conference that is half G5 teams in the last decade, when you had an opportunity to go up to a higher level of the SEC and the Big 10 that are bigger than ever, and make no mistake, if Florida State and Clemson leave the ACC and go to the Big 12, all it does is open that gap up even larger. Because now the ACC is dead and the Big 12, it's just a further dilution. So it would be a really sad day for me. And yeah, here at this channel, we think it's 100% bullshit. Not that conversations have been had, but all this talk to the Big 12 at this point in time, bullshit. There's nobody, whatever. If somebody comes out and goes on record and prove me wrong, but our money is on the Big 10 all day long and tomorrow. I'm gonna go ahead and put the number up here. We are at about 46 minutes, so a little bit longer to go. I did want to talk a little bit about the guys in recruiting and stuff, but is there anything, am I missing anything on the legal side? Any headlines that we haven't chalked into before we get into a little bit of the dates that have came out in the past couple of days?
Yeah, so AG Moody had their documents that they were fighting about. What's happening right now is the judge invited ESPN to reply to the petition for the writ of mandamus. ESPN filed their reply brief and got pretty testy with Ashley Moody and the AG's office. And so then the AG's office filed a petition asking for the opportunity to respond. And ESPN filed a response to that, smacking Ashley and Moody around again, saying, you know, this is ridiculous. You can't file 3 briefs trying to allege what your position is, pointing out that the AG's office wasn't even citing to any authority for their initial right to the mandamus, which the AG's office said was outside the context of the briefs and shouldn't be considered. So they're really just bickering right now in written form. And I would expect that, since we didn't hear about it today, I would expect early next week that we're going to get a ruling as to whether or not the AG's office can file a 3rd brief on this issue. The hearings are coming up, as you mentioned, July 22nd. Judges typically don't like filings to be made inside of 10 days of the hearings because they want to give the parties enough time to prepare. There will be a hearing, so the AG's office will get to verbally respond to some of these issues and make argument on some of these issues. So I suspect the judge is probably going to shut down the briefs and just say, no, we've got the hearing on July 22nd. That's going to be your opportunity to voice your thoughts and opinions about what's going on.
So glad you remembered that. So thanks to Jason Shearer with a $3 super sticker. We really appreciate it. And regardless of whether, you know, whatever happens this hearing on 22nd, I wouldn't put it past the fact that it did influence Florida State being able to get their discovery, be it you know, private, as fast as they did. Who knows?
So along those lines, that was the other development this week. Judge Cooper signed the order saying that there is a protective disclosure of the ESPN agreements and all the other agreements that were provided. So the Board of Trustees and the attorneys will be able to get an unredacted copy of all the agreements, and it will not be subject to the sunshine laws or any disclosure. So that was the other thing that happened on the FSU litigation this week. And that meant that there was 7 days for the disclosure. So sometime early next week, the Board of Trustees and the Florida State attorneys will get that document or those documents.
And who can we pay to leak it?
None.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Attorneys don't like to risk their bar licenses over silly stuff like that.
I didn't mean attorneys. They have
Where's Mike
assistants.
from Suits when you need him? He could put that shit on Twitter yesterday.
Yep. I mean, look, there are people without, you know, those requirements you can, you know, maybe get into.
Yep.
Great stuff.
I'm kidding. I'm not asking anybody to break the law. Please, Lord have mercy. Don't start reporting me, guys.
Yeah, we've been waiting for this forever. It's a shame that we don't get to read it, but at the same time, these court dates are going to happen. It's going to be really weird when all this stuff's got to be kept in house. But how in the hell are we going to be able to kind of judge these court dates and going back and forth? I mean, they've pretty much been filmed on live local TV every time. I don't know if that's going to affect that. If they're going to take the cameras out, how they're going to be able to handle that. How do they
judges
keeping it secret, but also being able to talk about it all?
Judges have rape cases involving minors. They have, contract disputes involving trade secrets. The courts are very well versed in how to not make public disclosures of things that are meant to be kept private. So you don't need to be concerned with that. The reality is that we don't get to sit here and break down line by line what the document means, but we really don't need to. That's a low priority in terms of the risk reward of the disclosures. What matters is that our team is going to see it, and based on that, they'll be able to mediate or negotiate this resolution. And I'm starting to believe, I didn't think before, and in all of our shows up to this point, that anything would happen before August 15th. But I'm seeing enough smoke. I'm seeing enough traction. I'm starting to believe that July may be the month, especially with the ACC Media Days coming up. Perhaps July is the month where some kind of announcement comes out.
That's a perfect transition. A perfect transition right there. Because the biggest thing we really hammered first couple of times we had you on here, that's what it was. We were getting every document, reading every single word, bringing them up here. That was fun. It's got to a point where that's not really it'd be a waste of time. It's just got to where there's so much paperwork and so much going on. But one of the things we hammered on, and one of the issues over and over again, is the ACC is like, it means this. It means that. It means this. I believe it was the 2016 deal, maybe, but they literally had in documents in 3 different memos where they represented it as 3 different things. So it just seems like it's got to be huge for the FSU team. And regardless of whether it's public or not, like the reason they fought so hard, tooth and nail, to keep those things from being dissected in a courtroom, there has to be a reason. And that's why I am pretty, I'm with you. I'm pretty, what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm pretty confident that there is some sort of announcement or something to come out before that August 15th date, when it seemed pretty set in stone that it was going to be 2026. It wouldn't surprise me if maybe there's some piece of intel out there that really has all these people believing FSU is going to get out, and that's why they're freaking out so much about the Big 12. And I can't burn sources or speak to anything, but I have seen with my own eyes kind of the facts that take you to believe Florida State wants to get to the Big 10, and they're feeling really good about where they are. Are we going to meet the puppy?
There you go. Hey.
This is one of them. French Bulldog. Can't walk more than half a block before puking. Farts in an awful way. We're house sitting for neighbors who are spending 3 weeks in Iceland.
Okay.
So we have our Yorkie. Yeah, it's not even our dog, but yeah.
What a man. Go
Good
Rohan,
neighbor.
your man.
I was going to blame George for the noises.
Comes, helps our podcast. He's dog sitting for people as I'm interrupting Deshawn. What you got, buddy?
Oh no, I didn't have anything.
Okay.
I did notice that the dog, so I was just laughing because the dog's gonna make sure that they get their time too. So.
What did y'all think of Adam Fuller and his vague tweet from today? He just tweets out number 1, nothing else. Me and Deshawn were talking about it before the show. I haven't talked to any source or anybody with any inside knowledge, so this is pure speculation on my part. Just putting that out there. A lot of times we do have information and we feel confident. On this one, I have no clue. But I believe Deshawn told me that Shaheem Brown is going to be number 1 on defense. So maybe he's the candidate for ACC Media Days. Maybe that's what that is. There's also Ty Jackson, who is like newly on the board at linebacker, the number 1 linebacker on 3. And there's also Jared Smith, who's committing on August 3rd, who is the number 1 edge. Outside of that, outside of like what number 1 would be outside of a team captain, ACC Media Day, or a number 1 recruit, that was my thought on it. I didn't know if anybody else had heard anything or any ideas about that, because Adam Fuller this isn't a guy that gets on Twitter and plays and does this or that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like really, it's like of all the vague tweets, something's coming, Adam. What we got?
Yeah.
I think it could be the number situation with Brown, and I think it could also just mean that he thinks he's going to have the number one defense. That's where I would go with that.
Can you imagine? If they build on what they did last year?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was an elite. The last 3 games was an elite defensive showing.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to hear that, though.
To see that come forward and play into this year, that I'd watch out. I will be telling all the lies on Twitter.
Yeah,
I usually do anyway. So let's do it.
People are sleeping. I'm telling you right now. Phil Steele, all his stuff was pretty close, but I did appreciate him not sleeping on the offensive line. I feel like not us, not Florida State, people like us and Chris, but some of the bigger platforms and the national people, like they just don't believe it. They think Florida State's got the 3rd, 4th, 5th best offensive line in the conference. And I'm here to tell you, watch out, baby.
Yeah.
And they want to talk about production. They don't have production. Well, offensive line isn't production, but it sure makes production a lot easier. I feel like we got a better running back in the hole. I feel like wide receivers takes a step back. Okay. Yeah. But you got better down there every single other place. People are so hyper focused on how thin we are at wide receiver and linebacker. It's like they don't want to admit.
I'm not worried.
All the other things that are better. It's like
first off, we're going to run the ball 55% of the time, 57% of the time. Second, the wide receivers, you don't have a number one yet. Somebody will emerge, maybe Hakeem, but you've got 4 or 5 number 2s on any ACC team. Every player that we've got could be a number 2 on any ACC team. And their speed, it's all speed. So you have that 55% run game. They're going to stack the box. You're going to have one-on-ones in the defense in the backfield. And all you need is DJ to increase his accuracy by 5%. If DJ increases his accuracy by 5%, he's in New York as a Heisman finalist.
If he keeps that 3-to-1 ratio, also the 3-to-1 touchdown ratio, and then like I had tweeted this out, it's been made about the returning production, but when you break it down and you really analyze it as a football mind, the production that's returning is in the trenches. That's where you want to have it when you have inexperience in other places. You don't have any experience on the offensive line, and you don't have it on the defensive line. You may have new players on the defensive side of the ball on the front 7, but you have experienced players who have played the game. They just have to learn the scheme and hit the ground running. So I'm ready to take that to Ireland. And
Speaking of Ireland and these Knowles, I said we were going to do it in the middle. I thought you started to, and I lost my track of mind. But you do have some special stuff going on with a trip over to Ireland. And we're at our max. We're up over 300 now in the chat. So let everybody know exactly what you've got going on with the trip to Ireland, how they can get with you and get your tomatoes soaked and skins peeled, curb streak and all that good stuff.
So if you're going to Ireland, we are very interested in connecting with you. There's going to be a link in the show notes that we can provide where you can register. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be coordinating our voice so that we can make sure that we're making an impact instead of everybody just having a bunch of different ways that they want to voice their opinions. We're going to have a WhatsApp channel. We've got some things for you some supplies for you to buy on Amazon. And we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to be part of a collective group. We've already got almost 50 people registered, and those 50 people represent families. So really that's probably closer to 75 or 100 people. And all we want to do is make sure we've got some chants down, make sure we've got some cheers down. I'm a family man. My 2 children are coming with me. So for those who are a little bit more conservative, this will be PG-13. We're not trying to get anybody kicked out or arrested. But we would strongly encourage you to please register. Please download the WhatsApp messaging service so we can share with you in real time some of the things that are going on. We're already blocking off Friday afternoon for a late lunch, 12 1, 2 o'clock, we're going to do a live show with some of our other partners from a pub nearby. So as you're planning your itinerary, leave open Friday afternoon for us to get together and hang out, have a meetup, and we'll share the registration link with you. But if you're going to Ireland, we'd love to see you be a part of our group, and we'll share some of our thoughts on how we can make our presence known to certain personalities who maybe think that we have gotten over the playoff snub when in fact we will never forget.
Never, ever. So yeah, I put that link in the description there in the live chat, but as soon as this thing goes off live, I'll put it in the regular comments and also in the description, and make sure that URL is up so you can join the group. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be nuts. William McMillan makes a late show up here. He's our guy who's always worried about recruiting. We appreciate you, bro. He says, do we get a commitment tomorrow? Off the top of my head, is there somebody committing tomorrow that I'm forgetting, Deshawn, before we go through all the names? Because I have a pretty
Not
good
that
idea.
know or understand. Let's see, 15th, this tomorrow's the 13th. I didn't have the 13th down as a date, so I'm not for sure. Chris, like I have the same dates you have, and I don't remember having that.
Yeah, I don't. Off the top of my head, I could be missing
Yeah.
one there, but I don't have anything for tomorrow there for you, William. But what I do know is Jabari Antone is committing on the 20th. That is one that we've known for a little while now. We also have, and he's down to LSU, Florida State, and Miami. Yeah, it's looking Miami leading the way, but this one's kind of been back and forth. He could end up at LSU, Florida State, or Miami, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
What do you think about, speaking of Miami, what do you think about the Jamie French smoke to Miami?
It's just sad, man. Yeah. It's just sad.
Poor
I feel
kid.
the worst for James. I feel the worst for James. That's right.
I feel the worst for that kid. I feel the worst for the kid because he ain't going to be catching it from Cam Ward next year. Who's he catching the ball from? Another quarterback? Huh?
HR Puffin stuff.
HR Puffin stuff. What is this? A Harry Potter movie? You're going to be catching something from somebody that should be in Hogwarts sorting hat. Okay. Like, if that's what you want to do, you want to go get your bag, kid, go get your bag. Okay. But no quarterback is going to be developed by Mario Cristobal. And if that's your life, that's your life. Enjoy it. Enjoy. You will be transferring in a year. Have fun, though.
Yeah. So I knew I was forgetting. This one, it actually did come out this morning, like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock this morning. Dalen McCutcheon will be committing tomorrow live with Rivals. He's down to USC.
That's the one I thought was, sorry.
Aggressive, Jen. Golly, blew out my eardrums.
No. I was gonna say I got him mixed up with McClendon. That's the one I got mixed up with. McClendon is this kid. That's it. Sorry.
McClendon. Who's McClendon?
Or whatever, the one that just committed. Like, I'm sorry.
But no, he's down to USC, Florida State, SMU, Ohio State, and Texas. So that's where you're leaning. You think he commits USC tomorrow?
Yes.
Same for you, Deshawn?
Yeah, I feel that right now it's heavier looking like USC right now.
Yeah, he's in Texas, so it's slap in the middle. Distance isn't a big factor. I haven't heard anything about Florida State in a couple weeks, so yeah, I would agree. I would tend to agree that he goes to USC. We'll just have to pay attention. Chances are, if he was committing tomorrow, I probably wouldn't have forgot his name and probably would have been talking about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, USC, I think Jen's right on that one, is probably where he's leaning. But some more of the dates that came out recently, like I mentioned earlier, Jared Smith, he is on August 3rd. That is going to be a Hail Mary kind of thing. We've talked about it a little bit. You think they're still in that one, Deshawn? You think we got a shot at Jared Smith? Or
no, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a long shot at this point, being not only his area, but then the recruitment that's been going on lately. Yeah, I'm not necessarily high on that commitment, on getting a commitment from him.
It seems like a long ways out. Josh Petty is August 12th, but I'll reiterate that I think he's all Knoll. He's a guy who's like a top tackle on one of the services. You'd have a number one inside offensive line and a number one tackle, along with another top 10 interior offensive line. I think he is an old, and if you get him, it would be a big boom. There's another one there on the third, along with Jared Smith, that I am blanking on, but it's another one. Okay, Ladarian Clarity, is he on the third as well? So Ladarian Clarity is one that I've been very vocal that I really wanted him in this class, but he is more of that kind of pure safety and a 6 foot, 5'11", 6 foot. So I just didn't know how hard the staff was going to go at him. Really seems like he's an Ole Miss guy. Looks like Ladarian Squirrel is going to be ending up there at Ole Miss, which stinks, but it ain't the end of the day. At the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. Pat Surtain already has 2 DBs committed. We've still got Onis Conan Banning, who we don't know when his commitment date is. He's on the board. We obviously just picked up Max Redman. We've got Zay Thomas. So we're going to be all good there, but definitely look out, see if you have a chance at some of these guys, but we'll see. I know this isn't the best recruiting segment anyways, but we wanted to touch on a little bit of it here at the end. William McMillan comes in with a $2 super chat. So glad the Marching Chiefs will be at the Miami game. Somebody has to make some damn noise down there.
Yeah.
Silent if they weren't.
What else are they going to do? Rope their recruits in like cattle again with nobody in the stands and make them just stand there and look around like with their cut? Like, I mean, those 4 kids were looking around going, can we not sit in these bleachers that's behind us? Whatever. There's nobody in the stands. Why are y'all making us stand and being herded in like we're about to just be put on a truck and being sold to a cattle ranch? What the hell?
Yeah, that shit is wild. It's like, that's one of those things where common sense should play out, but it doesn't. You've got like all these people in a room deciding how they can make it look great. When you have a completely empty stadium and it's like, you got to go to the recruit section. That was like one of the weirdest things you will ever see in a million years. Boy, howdy. That probably hurt their recruiting for 5 years before, like until Mario even got there. But Al Woody jumps in and says, Brunell Brown on July 22nd. Some people out there have their hopes up that he's going to be Florida State. But I just think this is one of those troll things, not just like a hateful thing, but just to, pump up the commitment ceremony. We've had it a couple of times in the past couple of years. Was it LJ McCray? All of a sudden, we got a shot at him before commitment day. I kept saying, like, yeah, it sounds good, but yeah, he's a Gator. So I'm thinking we have the same thing with that. Deshawn will probably be back. There ain't no telling what happened there. But we are getting pretty long in the crew tooth there as Chris Frazier jumps in the chat. What's up, my man? Here's Deshawn jumping back. I think we've covered about everything. Is there anything on anybody's mind? Any questions? Usually the phone rings a little bit. We haven't had any questions. So now's the time to speak now and forever hold your peace. I
did want to saw that Vince was in the comment section earlier and just apologize to him for giving him such a short time yesterday. I literally spent like 7 minutes on his podcast yesterday and gave you guys an hour. So I'm so sorry, Vince, but go check out Garnet and Old, and hopefully next Thursday. Next Thursday, I'll be on a plane, so I won't even be able to be with you. The other thing I want to mention real quickly, please, if you're not already following at Rohan Law PC for all the legal stuff, I am 23 followers away from 5,000. I'd really like to round out that number. So if there are 23 people on here listening now who are not already following me, please do so, or share too much. Yes, Chris, it is absolutely your fault. No, you got great stuff to contribute, and we really appreciated that.
We didn't get Chris on this. So there you go. He goes out. The time goes out. Though he did jump in the chat.
And the last piece of legal news that came out this week, no, I do not currently own a branch office in Athens, Georgia. I would have been able to retire by now if I had all the business coming out of Athens. Let's get into that. Let's get into
it. I mean, for all the talk about culture, and I made the comment when it happened, but I was the asshole for saying it. Yeah. Now that we've got 10 more cases, can we talk about it now?
I had lunch with my 2 booster reps today, had some wings and beer, and got to talk about some of this stuff. And the bottom line is, again, I'm a homer. I'm 100% homer. I recognize that. I know that. there is not another program I would want to replace my fandom with than what Mike Norvell, Link Jarrett, and Lonnie Alameda is doing at Florida State with all this investment, with the right culture. I don't envy Alabama. I don't envy Georgia. Texas, if I knew enough about them, maybe I would, but I don't even know anything about them. Texas A&M, obviously, they're just batshit crazy with their cheer yell guys. But there's not another program with a better trajectory, with better leadership, with the future of Florida State in the next 3 to 5 years is going to be incredible, regardless of where we end up.
Yeah.
And so just, all this stuff happening in Athens with Kirby, that look, when problems started happening in the locker room at Florida State, that's when we realized we were on the downward trajectory. I think Georgia's sure they're racking up these 5-star classes, these top recruiting classes, but I really think they're going to be in the next 5 years on a problematic trajectory as opposed to maintaining their superiority.
Nothing lasts forever.
What?
Everyone's in shock and disbelief.
Oh my God. I mean, let me get on my fainting couch.
Well, I'll piggyback off you, Doug, because I live in the state of Georgia, and these things that we're hearing are nothing new. It's been going on since Mark Richt was the coach. It's been a continuation of problems, whether it's DUIs or speeding tickets and driving. It's a tradition like none other up there.
Yeah, it's
Athens and Augusta, they're very close.
Yeah.
How do they not have an Uber account on each player? I do not understand in the year of 2024 how in Athens, Georgia, these people still do not have an Uber account. I don't
because
get it.
When you're driving a Hellcat, it's not about going the speed limit.
No.
Well, then someone needs to talk to the cops around there and tell them to get with the program like they do in Gainesville, like they do everywhere else, because this is absurd. Or you need to rein these kids in. Give them a racetrack, do whatever you've got to do. I don't know what it is. But other than that, y'all need to have Uber on demand. And if you catch one of these kids driving a car or doing anything else again, they get to sit. Like you've got to do something, because this is getting outrageous. And honestly, it's not really a joke anymore. I mean, we know people have died in that whole scenario. So I'm really not making light of that. But what I'm saying is in 2024, Justin Timberlake, I'm looking at you too. How are y'all driving when you have all this money? I don't have the time for it anymore. And I don't feel sorry for you. I really don't. Poor people get Ubers too,
Yeah.
Stop it. Stop it. That's all I'm going to say.
As men, we all get it. There's the whole, the drive, whether it's, a rock song, there's a country song, there's all these songs about driving and being a teenager. I can imagine 17, 18, getting a Hellcat. I'd want to do the same things. But there's this thing when you're a D1 athlete, even in high school, when you're the star quarterback of the team, you get the kicker to drive. There's got to be somebody in the
not the kicker. Excuse me,
somebody
George.
Some common sense somewhere.
You want Janikowski driving your car? I don't think so. You did not say kicker. Not the kicker.
Excuse me.
Not the kicker.
Not Janikowski. That's like saying a golfer and trying to say John Daly is the prototype.
Yeah.
Come on now.
I guess Tiger Woods we're just gonna go too deep. We'll get crazy. This is too much fun, but we're only supposed to get an hour. We're at an hour 14. Don't let us keep you on here all night, Doug. We really appreciate you, but
thank you very much, Doug.
And it kept going.
You all
really
be great.
Appreciate it. You too.
I'm gonna miss the snoring dog.
Thank you.
You all take care.
You too, Doug.
Good night, Doug.
Doug is the man. Doug is the man. We appreciate him coming in here and straightening things out, getting on the same page, giving you our thoughts on the Big 12 and the SEC and everything else. It was a lot of fun. Any closing comments before we shut her down? Play a little Chubb Life for the homies in the chat.
For me, I'll speak one more thing on the litigation thing, and I'll liken it to this. History has always shown us that a war fought on two fronts, you lose.
Yep.
you have the ACC in a position where they're fighting a battle on multiple fronts, and it's never proven to be victorious.
5 fronts now.
Yeah, multiple fronts. Yeah. So
2, 4, 5. If you count Moody, North Carolina and Florida, North Carolina and South Carolina, that's at least 5 right there. I agree.
Yeah.
I think, that makes perfect sense as to why all this shit has really got serious. I guess it's just aggravating when we've been sitting here doing this shit. Chris and James have been doing it even longer, been trying to tell people for all these 2 years, all these things and all these reasons, and people telling us we're crazy and they can't do that. And it's like one day, one person says something, the same exact thing about the Big 12, and it's like, whatever. But we didn't do a special live show. I started to Wednesday or Thursday when all this shit was coming out. We waited, but we appreciate you guys. We had a pretty good crowd in here. Encyclopedia comes with the $20.13 super chat. Go Noles. That was the last national championship team. I saw some Miami person was trolling. I can't remember what it was. It splintered off the DJU Circle K commercial, all the Florida people and the Miami people talking shit about it. And he said, this is the stat he dropped on me. Of all the teams, Florida State has the least wins over a number 1 team. I said, dude, this is the easiest slam dunk I've ever had in my life. Check it out there, little Miami and Florida Gators fans. When you're number 1, you can't beat number 1. When you get a wire national championship, then come talk to me. Tell me how many number 1 teams you beat when you're number 1. Because when Florida State has won the national championship for most of the year, we are number 1. Okay, so that was just like the craziest thing ever.
Miami fans wouldn't be able to do that because I think they were ranking them by like old school, like typing in your rankings at that moment. The last time they won a national championship, like they were using like typewriters, had to use the fax machine, then send it over the wire, put it on a VHS tape, all the things. Like they're not like us at this point, right? I'm sorry, I'm gonna quote it. I'm doing it. They ain't like us. Get out, be quiet. I'm over it. Like Miami fans, y'all have to seriously put in a VHS tape to watch your last championship or even the remnants of one. You have to seriously sit down, and you've never won an ACC. Like, this is so gross. This is so gross. ACC is such garbage. And the fact that you can't even win it, like, I'm over you. And you're so unserious for this. Like, you're so unserious. I can't take you seriously. Sorry.
Facts. They get hyped. Again, another off-season championship for the Miami Hurricanes. But at the end of the day, it's going to be Florida State and Charlotte. I can't wait. This is going to be, I don't know if I've ever been more hyped for a season. I know I said the same thing last year, but Doug Rohan hit the nail on the head when he talked about how great of a program Mike Norvell, Michael Alford, Adam Fuller, this whole thing has pulled together, and the future of where it's going is so bright. And that's my biggest gripe. You know, when people talk about blue chip ratios and what we're not doing and this and that, when you look at the trends, I mean, it is insane growth year over year over year, and it hasn't stopped. Here we are in year 5, you know, doing significantly better. When you look around the country at a UM or a UF, those guys came in and they got the new coach hire bump, and they did what they were supposed to do and had decent recruiting classes the first 2 years. Florida State got FUC KED. They couldn't. They got hired. Mike Norvell got hired during COVID. There was no coach bump. It was the opposite. It was a nightmare. It was a disaster. Kids went to where they felt was like the safe people that had stuff going on at that time. And it played out terrible. Everybody, it was like the worst graded class of all time, those couple classes. So now when you look at it and you see, okay, his third year, he had 50% blue chip ratio. And then the next year, it went up, and then the next year, now we're looking at maybe 80, 90%. It's like, come on, man. We just had our best transfer portal class of ever. You just signed your best class by a mile, and they're all new. It's just like it's the first of 4 years. Like, we're in year 5, but this thing it's going better. It's going to get better and better and better. We love you all, guys. Anything else before we part? Doesn't like we're going to get any questions.
No, I just like to thank the Miami fans in the chat thank you for the viewership. You come and troll, that's fine, but
Thank you.
appreciate it because it still gives credit to viewership. So we really appreciate it. This is what you're doing on a Friday night, but we thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, I haven't even noticed those losers. Like, imagine just being such a loser on a Friday night. That's what you do. Get a life, a job, a girlfriend would probably be more preferable because we know you don't have one if this is what you're doing. Sorry, my guys.
All righty. You heard Jen. Get off the couch. Go get ready. We will see you guys next time. We're going to leave y'all with a little bit of Trub life. And we got some fun stuff coming up. Hopefully, next couple weeks, who knows, we'll surprise you guys with some really awesome guests. Might breaking news. Who knows what we're doing? We're getting close to the season starting here. This thing started December of 2022. The show is about to hit its 1-year anniversary. A lot of big things. We're going to start doing giveaways and stuff. I almost forgot. Sports Force, our girl Sky Knoll, before we log off. If you don't follow her on Twitter, she has an amazing Twitter account and a company called Sports Force in Pea Ridge, on Pea Ridge Road in Bristol, Florida. She does all kind of cool arts and crafts things and some Florida State stuff. She's worked on these patches. She had a first version of the patches that we gave out at the spring game and with some different giveaways we did here on the channel with money and trading cards. Here are the new patches. They are pretty awesome. They look a lot cooler, I think, than the last ones. And they've got Velcro on the back of them, actually, the male version of the Velcro. So you could just put something, put your Velcro and use them in all kinds of stuff. So once we get a little closer to the season, we get a little bit more financially sound here with the channel. We're going to start giving away a little bit of money again, and I'll get some patches out and have a blast with you guys. But that's about it. We love you all, and we will see you on Sunday.
Good night.
Good night.
Go Knowles, baby.
Hey, man. First off, fuck Bama in the road tide. Fuck Tuscaloosa in every city that's close by. Bitch ass hillbilly redneck fans. Auburn almost caught y'all slacking like dress hands. Michigan trash, they ain't got a damn chance. Only Wolverine I respect is X-Man. Keen ass coach got exposed, still in plays. Damn right I'm bitter, y'all sweeter than lemonade. Texas ain't shit to rave about. The Longhorns only good at a steakhouse. Had y'all like number 3, I was like, no way. Y'all lost to Oklahoma, which means y'all just okay. And Washington not important. Y'all beat some ducks, acting like that's vital as an organ. If we played y'all, we kick that ass Chuck Norris. Y'all stay boring. Only thing in that bitch is a forest. Let's set the record straight. Fuck your team if it ain't Florida State. 13-0, undefeated. Damn, what more it take? Denied our presence. That should be a crime. They jealous. Probably get in if the Gators wasn't 5-7. Miami better not say nada. Last time they won a championship, food stamps had paper dollars. Shout out to FAMU, that's fam too. They say it's about money, but keep it 100. We got bands too.
Well, see y'all next time.
All
Go
right.
Knowles.